Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Reuben, we have a lot to get to today. Ray Didinger joins us in a bit. Matt Maiocco from NBC Sports Bay Area will join us to talk about the 49ers. But I want to start with DeVonta Smith and what we've learned about him in the last week or so.
Can I just ask you, how could it not be a brand new episode if we're taping it now? How could it not be a brand new episode? Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about DeVonta's personality. And, we saw the video. I think everybody saw the video post-game in the locker room. And, this kid has been so quiet, not just quiet, but just so reserved and just in a shell. And since he got here, and he's a young kid, he's shy, but we saw a little bit of that personality after the game. I don't think there were that many times in preseason we even saw him smile or saw any emotion out of him. But one thing that Nick Sirianni really emphasizes is connection. The other receivers kind of took him under their wing in terms of helping him out of his shell. They all got really close, the whole group of them, and to the point where after the first game, he was able to dance around and really show his personality that we hadn't seen. And we talked to him today, Thursday, about that. And even talking about it, he was a little more, evocative. I mean, we saw him smile and laugh. And I think that's important. It doesn't make you a better football player, but just as far as connecting with your coaches and your teammates and letting your true self come out a little bit. Like one of the receivers said, I forget who it was, but if you know that guy, you're more, if you know that guy, you have a connection with him and you're close to him, you feel like he's your brother, you're going to make that block for him. You want to see him succeed. And I think that's what we've seen. And, it's kind of hokey when Nick talks about connecting, and that's a big part of his whole philosophy, his core values. But there really is something to it when these guys get so close that they can help a young, shy kid come out of his shell a little bit. And I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, and if a young guy like that feels more comfortable, it probably translates to the field. I don't think it's like he's joking around with his teammates. All of a sudden, he's an all-pro. But I think there is something to just being comfortable and feeling free off the field. It probably allows you to play a little freer on the field. Not that he's someone who's gonna get too stressed out or the stage is gonna be too big for him. But I think anything like that helps. And you're right. The Nick talking about all of his stuff. It gets old to hear it for us, but there's a reason he lists connecting first, and that's something we kind of saw with the Eagles. I almost said this team, but it's not this team. It was last year's team because of the COVID restrictions. I think they really struggled with that part of it, is being a cohesive unit, and that was really kind of what Doug had. He leaned on that in his previous years as the head coach, and last year he didn't have that. It was gone. So just them being back in the building together, it matters. And yeah, you can tell there's a fun side to DeVonta Smith. It's not like he's not Darius Slay. He's never going to be Darius Slay, but there's a fun side to him that we don't get to see very often. And look, I don't think all of his teammates get to see it either. I think that some of them were probably surprised to see him dancing after the win too, but he has it in him. You can see it.
Yeah, it was funny because somebody asked him today, what do you think of the city? What do you think of Philadelphia? And he said, I haven't seen it. They're like, well, no, just kind of walking around the city, going out to dinner, whatever. He says, I don't do that. So I just sit in my apartment. He doesn't have a roommate. He says, I'm fine. I just go back. What do you do? I watch film and go to sleep. I come to practice the next day.
And he plays video games. It seems like that's his only non-actual football thing he does.
Sleep. I guess not really.
He's probably dreaming about bubble screens.
He probably is. But it's interesting. He's an interesting kid. There's more there. He's very smart. Has a real, but I think there's something about Alabama. There's something about playing at Alabama. I think they kind of try to strip your personality away a little bit. You don't see a lot of guys come out of Alabama and have, they might have a strong personality, but I think they're taught not to let it show. I think there's I think that's part of the culture down there, just part of how they focus on football, and you don't see a lot of that. But the NFL is a different animal, and it's kind of today was fun talking to him, just because I think he was getting a kick out of the fact that he was talking about his personality, which he's probably never done in his life. And everybody was laughing because, they're like, well, haven't you been out to dinner? He's like, no. It's like, can you eat cheesesteak? No, I just go to my apartment. That's all I do. But you know what? If that's what it takes right now as a 22-year-old rookie to really be focused on being the best wide receiver he can be, then he knows best. There'll be time for that other stuff.
Yeah, I remember in training camp, actually, he was asked a little bit about his personality. And the one thing that it kind of stuck with me was he said it took him way less time to begin opening up here than it did when he got to Alabama. And I think some of that's just growth as a person. I mean, he was obviously a pretty young kid when he got to Alabama. So, but I think it was also a concerted effort on his part, knowing that that's where he wanted to be. He wanted to have that connection with guys. So, it makes sense that he's put the work in, and it probably helps having guys like Jalen Hurts here, who he has familiarity with, and altogether, it's a good sign. It doesn't really mean that he's going to become a great player. I think there's other reasons for that, but it can't hurt.
And the guys that he credits for helping him come out of his shell are guys like, he mentioned earlier this summer, Greg Ward and Quez and Rager. And even John Hightower, who's not on the practice squad. But these are all guys that he's really taken reps from, either directly or indirectly. But there's such a brotherhood among the wide receivers here that they all want to see the other ones succeed. And they'll do everything they can to help the other guys. And they're all very close. And I think that really speaks volumes about the character of that whole position group.
Yeah. This isn't about his personality, but the other thing I really liked that DeVonta said on Thursday was he was asked about blocking, and he just went, yeah, I mean, that's part of the job. Like, that's not, I have to block to give other guys opportunity. They have to block to give me opportunity. Blocking is something that it sounds silly. And I think we talked about J-Jaw blocking in last week's game, but there's something about blocking as a receiver. It's like, you just got to want to do it. You just got to get in the way. It's not about, you're not an offensive lineman. You're not trying to stop a defensive end, but you just have to be in the right place at the right time and show a little bit of toughness. And watching a guy like that who's so slender blocking, it's fun because he should. We've seen some smaller guys be able to block. Most of that is will.
Yeah, you just got to want to do it. Like you said, you just got to slow the guy down a little bit. And I think you made a great point on Tuesday with the last podcast. In this offense, when everything is short, not everything, but so much of the offense is short game, trying to get those yaks, you really need to block because there's going to be a lot of defenders in that area, and you got to account for them. The whole thing's got to be really carefully orchestrated. And I think we saw Sunday at least, and it's one game, but all the receivers, I thought, and the backs all blocked well. You're not going to play if you don't.
Yeah, that's fair. And there's not much room for error on some of these plays. You're talking about, we mentioned the bubble screens. You're talking about a bubble screen. Everybody better be where they need to be or it's going to get blown up pretty quickly. So, yeah, receivers blocking in this system is very important. And it's refreshing to hear how nonchalantly DeVonta Smith talks about it. It's just, yeah, that's part of my job.
Yeah. It's an interesting group of wideouts, and there's no prima donnas. There's 2 first-round picks. How often do you see first-round picks that are, wide at that position? I mean, that position lends itself to it. But it's a serious-minded group, and there's nobody that feels like they're bigger than the team, and they're all unselfish. It's an interesting group, all homegrown.
All right, now we bring in, as we do every Thursday, our good buddy Ray Didinger. Ray, that was quite an opener, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Surprising. I picked him to win, but I certainly didn't pick him to win that way. That was really impressive. Nick Sirianni, after the game, talked about winning in all 3 phases, and they did. I mean, they were better on offense. They were better on defense. They're better on special teams, and they were certainly better in coaching. I mean, it was a really, really impressive week one performance.
Ray, what surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most was the way they just completely shut down Atlanta's offense. The way they really neutralized Ridley and Pitts, who are really good players. And, we had talked last week about how we thought that the Eagles' defensive line would win the battle at the line of scrimmage, and they certainly did. And they got pressure on Matt Ryan, which they certainly did. But the fact that Ridley and Pitts for the bulk of the game really were no factor was really surprising to me. I thought that the first quarter, those first two Atlanta possessions, took it right down the field. First one, they get it down to the 4-yard line, have to settle for a field goal. Second one, they get it down to the 2-yard line, get a penalty, have to settle for a field goal. First quarter ends, they've held the ball the whole time, moved it, and they're still behind. And I really thought that was, Sirianni talked about the fact that he thought that was big, that the Eagles were able to come up with those two red zone stops. And I really thought from that point on, the Eagles defensively certainly had control of the game.
How about offensively, Ray? Because the one word I came up with for watching that offense was refreshing. After years of kind of seeing the same thing, to see an offense that did a lot of different things and did them well, it was fun to watch.
I agree with you. There was a lot of different stuff there. And, we had talked during the preseason how, Nick certainly hadn't shown us much in terms of formations and motion and different kinds of plays and everything. But they rolled it out there on Sunday, and it was good. I mean, they came out early and, hit the bubble screens to Rager, got him in the game. But when you look at it, they ran the ball a ton. They got 170 yards rushing, really good balance between the run and the pass, 3 touchdown passes to 3 different receivers. It was, it was a very well schemed, very well called, and very well executed offense. And of course, the player of the game, in my view, and I guess most everybody's, was the quarterback. He was really, really on his game Sunday.
Ray, I got to ask you about, we talked a lot in the preseason about Nick's style of training camp. They didn't go live. Practices were very short. They were fast paced, but they were, one of them was 75 minutes. They're out there an hour and 15 minutes. The longest one, I think, other than joint practices, which a couple of those got to 2 hours, but their longest practice was an hour 45. There were no goal line, no short yardage, nothing live. Yet they come out opening day. They're healthy. They played hard, and they tackled well after the first couple series. They were fresh at the end of the game, and they won by 26 points on the road against a likely Hall of Fame quarterback. What does that say about Nick's philosophy of the preseason? To me, it validates it, and I would think we'll see more of it.
I agree. I thought the same thing. I remember I was there the day of the one joint practice with the Patriots, and people were saying, "Oh my goodness, this is 2 hours." Like that was a lot. And I'm thinking, man, I covered the Dig for Meal team. 2 hours, they were just getting started. I felt it. I felt it during the preseason. I thought, geez, I just don't know if they're getting enough work done. And then you compound it with when the actual games, when the real players hardly played. I had some real questions about their readiness coming in. I really did. But he clearly didn't. And I thought that the fact that they came out and first possession, they come out and they're running no huddle right down the field was really impressive. That he felt confident enough in their readiness that he comes out and he's running the hurry up right on the first possession, which, sent a message. And, they had, were there some things that you saw there that maybe have been a carryover from maybe not quite getting enough? Yeah, the penalties were part of it. The tackling early wasn't particularly good. And a couple of those drives, there were a couple of third down plays where if the first guy makes the tackle, they don't even get the first down. There were a couple of missed tackles that led to first downs. But once they got after that second possession and they got into the second quarter, they really settled into the game, and they were I mean, they were way better than the Falcons. Now, one of the takeaways from that game is you find yourself asking, and this is maybe a little unfair because we don't know the answer yet. You find yourself asking, okay, were the Eagles really that good, or maybe were the Falcons really that bad? We don't know. I mean, we'll find out over time. Probably the truth of it is it was a little bit of both, but it doesn't take away from the fact that that this coaching staff really had this team ready to play.
Yeah, that's kind of it's been the talking point this week. Is it? How do you look at this game? Was it the Falcons are going to be awful and it doesn't mean as much, or but the way I look at it is here's two teams that are kind of in these rebuilding modes, and you can argue the Falcons, in a way, have a little bit of a leg up. They have the quarterback in place. So, and we don't, obviously, the Eagle situation is a little more fluid. What do you gain out of this game, Ray? Like, how do you look at it overall? Are you that much more encouraged or just a little bit?
If people were really on the fence about how they felt about this team, kind of geez, I don't know. Well, I think this is really impressive, and I'm not somebody that is inclined to overreact to things. I mean, I tend to take a more measured kind of view of stuff, but I thought it was really impressive because they did everything they wanted to do. Once they got control of that game and it came in the second quarter, that drive at the end of the half, and they take it down the field and convert 3 third downs, can overcome 3 penalties. Still come down, and they scored a touchdown with just a sweet throw by Hurts into the end zone. And then at that point, they go into the halftime with all the momentum and complete control of the game. And then the second half, it was theirs. That was really good. That was really, really good. Good play calling, good command, really good execution, and just the assurance that Hurts played with was really something for a guy in just his 5th start. We talked last week about how Atlanta, I don't think their defensive personnel is all that good. Dean Pease is a really good coach who does a really good job of disguising things and making it hard on a quarterback to get his pre-snap read and all that kind of mental stuff. And there really wasn't a time in the game where I saw any sort of confusion or hesitation on the part of Hurts. It looked like he got up to the line of scrimmage and knew what he wanted to do and executed it really, really well. And, for all of us that have asked questions about his accuracy, man, he was as accurate as any quarterback in the league last Sunday. And, in every way that you could have a positive week 1 performance, they certainly did.
Yeah, it's funny you say it was his 5th start. And in a way, I consider it his first start because I almost take last year and throw it away just because there was a scheme that wasn't designed for him. He had bad offensive lines. His receivers were either hurt or not playing well. He, technically, the stat book will say he started 4 games, but it really felt like a beginning for him. And I wanted to ask you, it's interesting because when you think about Jalen Hurts, the first thing people ask about is how fast he is. He's a great runner. And we know he can throw the ball, but I think he showed Sunday just how smart he is, how well he can diagnose blitzes. His blitz recognition was impeccable. He saw the field well, just the cerebral side of the game. I'm not sure he's gotten credit in the past. And look, honestly, we hadn't seen it over a full game, but I just thought he was in such command mentally of the offense, understanding what the defense was trying to do. He ran at the right time. He threw it away at the right time. Maybe one play he when he was rolling out to the right where he probably should have unloaded it a little earlier, but you can nitpick. But for the most part, I just thought the mental side of his game was really impressive.
Yeah, right on top of it. I agree with you. One of the things that I was just looking over the scouting report I did on him when he was coming out of college before the draft, before I ever even I never imagined he'd be playing in Philadelphia. The idea that he'd be drafted by the Eagles was, I didn't even think that. But I had a scouting report on him from having seen him play at the 2 colleges. And one of the things that I wrote down there as a negative was looks to run too soon. And I thought that was true of him as a college player. I thought there was once he got the ball in his hand, if the throw was there right away, he was okay. But if it wasn't there immediately, his first inclination was to just take off. And that's fine in college, but you got to learn. You got to learn a little more patience and give something a chance to develop if you're going to really be good in the NFL. And I thought he showed that was an area even last year in the 4 starts. It looked like he needs to improve on that, and needs to improve when he gets outside the pocket to keep his eyes still down the field and not looking to run the ball, being more quarterback than runner. But it looked like, Sunday, it looked like he had improved by leaps and bounds in both of those areas. When he got outside the pocket, he was still definitely, his eyes were up and he's looking down the field. And the other part of it was he did run, but I thought he ran at exactly the right time and in exactly the right situation. There wasn't anything that you would call skittishness or any of that kind of stuff, which, we've seen. And saw a little bit from him last year, but you didn't see any of that on Sunday. And, I think some of it was, I think he just felt really comfortable behind this offensive line. He had his guys. He had the 5 offensive linemen, the regular guys, and they played really well. And I think he felt real comfortable playing behind them. And if they can keep those 5 guys on their feet and on the field for the rest of the season, that will be a huge plus for this team, and certainly a huge plus for the quarterback.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway from this game, was that O-line and D-line looked to be about as good as we thought they were. And if those 2 lines play at that level, they're going to be in a lot of these games that we thought maybe they weren't going to be in. So all of a sudden, if those 2 units play well, I'm not saying this team is a contender, but they might surprise some people.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. The offensive line and the defensive line are both really good. If you just look at the depth chart and you look at who those players are, they're really strong there. And if you're strong on both sides of the ball, and this goes back to the old Andy Reid philosophy, if you're really strong on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage, you're going to be in a lot of games. Now, can you get through the season with a bunch of players who, have some age on them and have some injury history? Can they make it through a season? Can you keep those units intact? Going to be hard, but if they can do it, they can be really good. And the defensive line looked really good. And we had talked a lot last week about Hargrave, and how good he had looked this summer. And he looked really good. He was dominant playing inside in that game. So if that's an indication of the kind of season he's going to have, this defense has a chance to really surprise some people.
It's funny to me. We talk about Andy Reid, who kind of brought that philosophy of building first with the lines. Remember, he used to draft players like Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, and here they are, 9 years after he coached a game in Philadelphia, and that's still the strength of the team. It's almost like it's Andy's legacy. It's what he left behind when he got fired and went to KC. Is that emphasis and some of their best linemen on both sides of the ball. I wanted to ask you a little about the Niners, just because they're an unusual team with their approach with the 2 quarterbacks. They always run the ball, no matter how many running backs they get hurt. They run the ball well. I guess 2-part question for you is the challenge of Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance are such different quarterbacks. The challenge of preparing for 2, and just being mentally acute of who's in the game and how to defend him, and just the success they have with that zone running scheme. And Mostert's gone, and who's a really talented kid, but they don't skip a beat. They still run the ball well.
It's really true. It's really funny. You look at Kyle Shanahan's offense, and it's so much like his father's. He just took Daddy's playbook and put it under his arm and ran with it. It's a lot of Mike's stuff is really the foundation of what they do. And they run the ball a lot. They use motion more than any team in the league, and they use it very well. And they have good players, and it was sort of the mold of, again, his father. He took a lot of backs that weren't considered to be great backs. Terrell Davis was a 6th-round pick. They turned into an MVP. A lot of it is the system and finding a back who kind of fits the system. And Mostert losing him, that's a loss. That's a big loss. He had really come on to become a good player. But, if you look at the tape, you're saying, wow, this Eli Mitchell, he looks pretty good. You just put him in that offense, and they execute everything so well. The center's really good. The two tackles are really good. Everything they do moves in combination. The timing and the coordination between the guys up front and the guys in the backfield is as good as you're going to find in the NFL week in and week out. They're a challenge, and they've got, Kittle is really tough to match up against. He's really tough. And getting Deebo Samuel back after being hurt last year really makes them a dynamic offensive team. I mean, you saw last week at 109 in receiving yards. And he's as dangerous yards after the catch as any receiver in football.
Yeah, that's what they do, that yak on that team. The one thing I love about the 49ers is there's such a good marriage there of front office and coaching staff. You can just see the players they get fit, at least offensively specifically. They really fit what they do with guys like Deebo and last year's high pick, Brandon Ayuk. Like, those guys fit that system so well. And if you're Jonathan Gannon, what do you do? I mean, when there's no secret of what Shanahan's going to do in this game. How do you try to stop it or slow it down?
Very hard to do. Very hard to do because they coordinate, they integrate run pass extremely well. They never get too heavy one way or another. I mean, they will continue to run the ball regardless of the situation. And then the passing game kind of works off of that. They never get you'll never see them get into a stretch where they just throw and lose track of the running game. They're just too disciplined for that. And I'm not the world's biggest Garoppolo fan. I don't think he's by any means a superstar, but he's pretty smart. And I thought that he looked really in command last week. I mean, that's as good as I've seen him throw the ball for a whole game. And just the way he moved around the pocket, he got out of a couple of looked like it could be a sack, and he got out of it. He looked very, very good. I don't know how he felt about the drafting of Lance. Probably, I don't think he was real happy about it. But they seem to have come to an understanding of that. Look, Jimmy's going to take the bulk of the snaps. Lance isn't going to take the job this year unless there's an injury. But there's going to be ways and situations in the game when they're going to want to get him in the game with a limited playbook, but a limited play selection. But he's such a talented kid that I think it's smart. And not every coach could handle it, but I think Shanahan is a clever enough guy that he will.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup. Ray, it's going to be fun this weekend because fans are going to be back at the link. It sounds hokey to talk about it, but it matters. And the Eagles have had a pretty big home field advantage in the last 5 or 6 years at home. How excited are you we're going to have to get there a little earlier, all the fans,
right.
But how excited are you to pull up on a Sunday morning and see some tailgaters there again?
It's going to feel great. I'm looking forward to it. You're right. I mean, there's something to be said for just being able to pull into your parking space last year and never have to worry about getting there early or having your pass or any of that kind of stuff. That was kind of, and I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy that part of it, but an Eagles home game, an Eagles Sunday, it's without the fans, without the tailgating, without the enthusiasm, without just the noise. It's definitely missing something. And I thought I saw Sirianni's press conference the other day when he was talking about that and how he's looking forward to seeing, Rocky up on the screen and all that stuff, getting all pumped up. I could see he's looking forward to it as well. And, the team they're flying off of that game last week. So it's going to be a lively atmosphere. I just, the only thing I thought about, and I mean, it's apropos of nothing. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that the two connect. But I remember the start of the 2000 season when the Eagles went down to Dallas and won the pickle juice game and killed the Cowboys and ran them out of the stadium and came home for the home opener the next week against the Giants. And everybody was all excited that they beat the Cowboys. And then they came home and laid a giant egg against the Giants. Tiki Barber ran all over them. I think it got beat like 31-14 or something. It wasn't even close. So sometimes you can get your expectations set a little too high. not necessarily saying that's what's going to happen, but I actually was thinking about that a little bit today because, that was an opener that nobody saw coming, and it was so exciting. And wow, they killed the Cowboys, and now we're coming home, and now we're playing the Giants, and they came home and face planted in front of the home crowd. Hope it isn't that way this week, but I think it's going to be a lively house. I think people have been waiting for this, and certainly what they saw in Atlanta, what they saw on Sunday, has only thrown some more fuel on that fire.
I think there's people already tailgating. Here we are Thursday afternoon. They're down there. They're drinking. They're getting ready. By Sunday, they'll be ready to go.
I have no doubt of that. Did you ever, Rube, were you ever up in Buffalo for an Eagles game when, like a day or two early, when that actually did happen, that the tailgating would start like on Thursday for a Bills game?
Yeah. Yeah,
that was wild because that whole, the Bills really are kind of a regional team. It's that whole upstate of New York. It's not just Buffalo. People come from all over. I mean, like really far, and they just come in those big Winnebagos. And I remember going up there to advance. It turned out to be the game where Randall threw the ball to the Freddie Barnett play, the
95 yards.
Yeah, and I got up there to do a couple Bills pieces, and I got up there on Thursday. And couldn't believe it. I mean, I went in the parking lot, and people were already tailgating on a Thursday afternoon for the Sunday game. So I don't know if it's going to be quite that way in South Philadelphia, but to get a few folks there on Saturday wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I mean, there's literally nothing else to do in Buffalo or in Orchard Park. So you get your 8 home games a year. You're going to take advantage of it because you go to the waterfall, you go to the Bills games, and that's it. So I'm not surprised they get there early.
All right, Ray. Let's look ahead to this game. What do you think on Sunday?
I'm sure 49ers were 3.5-point favorites, but Atlanta were 3.5-point favorites last week too. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I think there are a few things here that lean in the Eagles' favor. If you look back, the 49ers defense is really good, but they're at their best when they're playing quarterbacks that can't run. When they have a pure pocket kind of quarterback, and they can get Armstead and Bosa and that pass rush going, they can really cause problems. Quarterback that is mobile and a quarterback that can get outside of that, they can struggle with that. And especially now, their secondary is not great, frankly. And losing Verrett adds to that. And that's kind of where I think the Eagles can have an advantage. If you can have a quarterback that can extend the play, it puts more pressure on a secondary that I think is a little ordinary. And I think that's one of the things the Eagles can do. I mean, it's like dealing with Bosa and Armstead is not easy. They're good players. But a lot of this is going to come down on Johnson and Mailata winning the battle at the tackle positions. If they can do that and they get hurt to the outside, they can make some plays in the passing game because I don't think the secondary is all that good. And I think what we saw with DeVonta Smith last week is going to repeat itself. I think he's that good a player. I think he's going to be a factor in every single game. So I like that. And on the other side, they don't have, they've got D'Amico Ryans, our old friend, is the new defensive coordinator. And it looked to me like at the end of that game last week with the Lions, and the Lions are certainly no great team, it looked like D'Amico was struggling to keep up with it. I mean, it looked like in terms of getting the plays in and getting the right people on the field, it looked like there was a lot of pressure on him in his first game as a defensive coordinator at the end against a not particularly good Lions team. So, I think if I'm Nick Sirianni, I want to come out and I'm going to want to play at a fast pace if I can, and put D'Amico in a position where he's got to make a lot of quick decisions. And utilize all of his personnel, come out and throwing that bubble screen to Rager, give him a chance to get the ball in his hands and make some plays, get DeVonta Smith down the field on some matchups that I think he can hit, tight end as well, and run the ball effectively. I think they can do all of those things. Now, it's going to be a real challenge because I think the 49ers are going to move the ball and score points too, which the Falcons couldn't do. But I think the Eagles offense could come out and execute and really make this a game.
I mean, the 49ers defense is not – I thought it was one of the best in the league 2 years ago. Then they had all the injuries last year, and they took a step backwards. I don't think they're close to being that 2019 defense.
No. The middle linebacker is very good. Warner's a really good player. And the two tight ends, Bosa and Armstead, are back. They're healthy, and they're good. But the secondary is not so much. The secondary is, I think, kind of just average. And if you can get the quarterback, give him enough time, or, as I said, try to get him outside where he can extend the play and make those guys cover when you have receivers that I think the Eagles do, I think there's going to be opportunities to make some plays down the field. And if Hurts is anywhere near as accurate and on top of his game as he was last Sunday, then, I think the Eagles can move the ball and score.
All right, Ray, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you Sunday.
Look forward to it, guys. Look forward to coming down there and seeing you and seeing the rest of the fans. This is going to be fun.
Hey, score big with the AAA Eagles MVP membership, along with the superb roadside assistance and discounts we've all come to expect from AAA. Get exclusive Eagles-related perks. For all the details, just visit AAA.com/Eagles.
And joining us now on the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan, our buddy from NBC Sports Bay Area, Matt Maiocco, who's actually in West Virginia right now.
Yes, so the 49ers played their week one game against the Lions. Instead of traveling back to the West Coast and then going out to Philadelphia, they've done this thing for several years now where they find a place to practice on the road so that they don't have to do that. And typically it's worked for them. The second game of a back-to-back road trip. In fact, they did it in 2011. They played their first game of a back-to-back in Minnesota. And then they played the Eagles, and they practiced in Youngstown, Ohio, because the family, the DeBartolo family, York family, they're from there. They have connections to Youngstown State. So they practiced there, and they came out and played a really good game back there. I think it was week 4 probably of 2011. So the back end of these trips, they've always played pretty well. So they're hoping that the same thing happens this week, starting the season in Detroit and now going to Philadelphia with a pit stop at the Greenbrier in West Virginia to practice. They got here Sunday night, so they practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and will leave for Philadelphia on Saturday.
I like that idea. It makes sense to not over travel because we know about how tough it is for West Coast teams, especially for a 1:00 Eastern game. That kind of messes up your internal clock a little bit.
It's funny because Kyle Shanahan, when he first got here, he had never coached on the West Coast. And so he was just like, he didn't think it was a big deal at all because people were saying, on these back-to-back trips, are you guys going to stay there? And he's just like, I don't get it. Why would you do that? And then I think after the first time he did it, he was like, oh, okay, I can see why this is a big deal. They've made a priority to do that every back-to-back time that they've had Eastern time zone games back-to-back. They've done it every time.
Well, the Eagles practiced stayed in L.A. between a Seattle game and a L.A. game a couple of years ago. So, yeah, it beats flying back across the country, although I did twice.
And were you fresh, Rube? Did we see the true Rube on that second game, or were you kind of beat down?
I was fresh, and so was my American Airlines mileage total.
Okay, now we know the rest of the story. It's all about the points, all about the miles.
Just doing what they told me. So
I happily spent that week in Newport Beach. I felt like I made out a little better.
Well, I got back in time to go to the Kettle on Friday night. Yeah, I took a red eye back Sunday and flew back out Friday. That was crazy. All right, let's talk about the Niners.
Oh, okay. I was gonna give you some 49ers history. When Joe Montana got drafted, he was at the Kettle. That's where he got the phone call.
Is that right?
That's 100%. Yes.
What table? Wonder what table he was at.
I don't know that.
They should have a little marker.
Now it's called the Rube table. So I don't know.
I love that place. we were at the Kettle during one of the Eagles. We had like 3 trips to LA in 2 years there, and we heard a commotion. We're sitting there at the outdoor deck having some dinner, and Dave was there. We heard a commotion. It was getting closer and closer, and we was like, that sounds familiar. And they finally the group that was making all the noise got up to where we were, and it was a bunch of Eagles writers. I was enjoying the evening. They couldn't find the entrance, so they ended up climbing over a wall into our little patio area. You remember that, Dave?
I do. We won't name names, but it was
no
a
names.
funny moment. Yeah.
But it was funny. Anyway, but that's good to know about Montana. That's a great story.
That's all I got. All right, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the pod. I got to start by asking you about the way Shanahan is using the 2 quarterbacks, and what are the pluses? What are the minuses? Do you think it's going to continue? Is it sustainable? How's Jimmy reacting to it? What's the situation?
I would say it wouldn't be sustainable if Garoppolo had a bad attitude about it. When they called him on March 26th when the trade went down, when the trade was finalized. And they told him before it became nationally known, they told him like, "Hey, we're trading up to 3. We're going to take a quarterback." And so the first thing he said, well, I think he was really angry, or upset, and like I think he thought, "Gosh, should I just ask for a trade, or what do I need to do here?" But eventually, he got to the point was like, "Okay, am I at least going to have an opportunity to compete for the job?" And they assured him yes. Because the way the roster was constructed, a lot of veteran guys on 1-year deals, they signed some guys to big money contracts. So this roster theoretically was set up to win now. And so they didn't want to like put a rookie in there and have him go through the lumps that rookie quarterbacks go through. They believed that they had a chance to win the Super Bowl now. And so that's what they were going to do. They're going to go with the best quarterback. Well, Garoppolo has done a really good job of saying all the right things, and for everything I understand, doing all the right things behind the scenes. He and Trey Lance get along very well. He's just had a great attitude. But, watching the game against the Lions, the 49ers are moving the ball down the field. They put Trey Lance in, and he gets stuffed on a running play. So now it's 2nd and 9, and here goes Jimmy Garoppolo back in. Now, Garoppolo ended up converting a 3rd and 6, but before that 3rd down play, I'm thinking, that was a horrible decision. It stopped the momentum of this offense. Now, they ended up getting down to the 5-yard line. Trey Lance goes back in and throws a 5-yard touchdown pass. A couple plays later in the game, he got stuffed, Trey Lance did, on a couple run plays. And so it's really, I understand the issues that it causes for a defense trying to prepare for 2 completely different quarterbacks. But there is this balancing act for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense to not mess with a good thing. The other part of this is Trey Lance played a full season, 16 games in 2019 for North Dakota State. That's the only games he played in college because the 2020 season was limited to 1 game in the fall season. Trey Lance played that game, and then he turned pro. So the last thing that the 49ers want is for this guy who they've made this huge investment in, who's going to be the quarterback of the future, to go another full season without playing football. And Shanahan believes that 4 snaps, which is what he got against Detroit, is better than no snaps as far as getting him developed and ready to go ultimately. And so you will see him on Sunday. I'm sure you will. How many snaps? I don't know. Over under, let's go with 4.5. He had 4 last game, so it might be in that 4 to 6 or 7 or whatever it might be. The other part of it is if he feels like he needs to slow down the Eagles' pass rush and maybe their defensive ends are just crashing, that they can do something read option-wise that might give them a better chance if the 49ers offensive line is struggling against the Eagles edge rusher. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer until you see the result.
Yeah, that's such a strange balancing act, especially if like you said, they're trying to go after to win this year. It's like, do you feel like you're almost shoehorning the rookie in there at times? It's an interesting balance.
It's hard to imagine a veteran quarterback being upset or threatened by a young quarterback who's drafted while the other quarterback is still playing at a Pro Bowl level. Really, I can't imagine that situation, especially when one of the two quarterbacks in question went to North Dakota State. But that's a story for another day.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, Reuben.
I don't really know. Just kind of a hypothetical. But how about the defense? How about the Niners defense? I was really surprised to see a 33 up there from a Lions team that they're okay. I've never been a big Jared Goff fan. Coach in his first game, another coach in his first game. I know they're banged up, the secondary especially, but what did you see from the defense there?
Yeah, I mean, through most of this game, it was kind of going as I thought it would. I think at one point they had a 38-10 lead, and it wasn't really even a contest. And then the 49ers kind of let their foot off the gas, and it showed. And they took some starters out, and then Jason Verrett, who's this poor guy. He came into the league in 2014 and just has never had a healthy season. It seems like most of his seasons he's injured either at the start of training camp, and we're talking severe injuries like ACLs and Achilles and all kinds of different things. Last year was about the healthiest he'd been since 2015, and he played really good. In fact, I mean, I was thinking, gosh, he might be a Pro Bowl player this year. He's that good. He goes down with the injury about midway through the fourth quarter, and then you had this combination of, I think, the spirits on the team kind of sinking because they could see that this was a severe injury, as well as some backup guys who are on the field and they didn't carry their end of the bargain. And next thing you know, the Lions have a chance inside a minute to go down and tie the game. So the defense did not do nearly as well as they expected to do. This team is all about the running game on offense and the defense. Their defense has always been good. It was DeMeco Ryan's first game as defensive coordinator, so he has some stuff to clean up. But I would say for the 49ers, the one thing that they probably thought was a given, their defense did not play from snap to whistle like they should have. So I know they have a tough task. The boys just checking out the Eagles week one, so much better than I thought that team would be. And now you look at them after seeing them for 1 week, granted against the Falcons, we don't know what they're going to be like this year. But when you look at the personnel and how that team's constructed, it makes you think, the Eagles could be a pretty good team this season.
Yeah, we'll see. I wanted to ask you about the secondary because obviously the injuries there. I don't know if it was their strength before the injuries, and now, with what's happened there, what's the plan there? Is Josh Norman ready? I know Drake Kirkpatrick is there. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, so they signed Drake Kirkpatrick this week. I don't think there's a chance that he would be active unless he just really tore it up in practice. And so they had a rookie, Diamador Lenore from Oregon, who stepped in, starting lineup, a little bit of a surprise in the sense that we didn't know whether it was going to be Josh Norman, who was just signed on the Monday before that Lions game, or Dante Johnson, a guy who's just been this yo-yo of, he's a veteran guy, but he's been practice squad, cut, back on the active roster, cut again, practice squad, he's bounced around, but he's somewhat reliable. So I almost thought that they would go with him, but they went with Lenore. He played all 90 snaps. Jared Goff only went to his side 3 times. They completed 1 pass on him for 3 yards. So Lenore will be a starter. And then the other side, it's very much up in the air. I don't know that Emmanuel Mosley, who is going to be the starter when training camp began, he has this knee injury. I don't know that he's going to be ready. And then it's going to be who? Is it going to be Josh Norman or is it going to be Dante Johnson? Whoever it is, they can go after both of those guys. I would assume that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles will target Diamador Lenore more than the Lions did, which isn't saying much because they only threw 3 times to his side. But I really think the recipe for the 49ers is going to have to be getting after the quarterback. They kind of come at you in waves. Their defensive line pretty comparable, I think, to the Eagles. So they're going to come at you in waves, and it's really on, I think, the pass rush to take the pressure off of the corners, because I don't know that the corners can hold up on their own.
Well, I want to ask you about D'Amico, because he's our old friend here in Philly. He was the guy who, even when he was playing, we all kind of expected him to go into coaching and have success pretty quickly. What's it been like watching him take over that position this year? Pretty young defensive coordinator.
Yeah, no, I mean, he looks the part. He sounds the part. The players like him. He's so, he's not far removed at all from playing. So 5 or 6 years, I think he's only been out of the game as a player. Now he's a defensive coordinator. So he's ridden, he's gone to the top pretty quickly in his coaching career. And, I think he'll be a head coach. I think he's that good. But, hey, I mean, he's a rookie defensive coordinator. And I think until you've sat in that chair – actually, he doesn't sit in a chair. He's on the sideline during the game. But until you've called plays and kind of tried to work it all together and all the stuff that's going on and people in your ear, and you're trying to figure out substitutions and who the other team has on the field, all that stuff, I think there's a lot for him to kind of work through. So I'm sure he made some mistakes on Sunday. I'm sure he'll make more mistakes this coming Sunday. But the players like him. They like how he just kind of turns them loose to the sense of, especially the defensive line, their instruction, just attack. And then the guys on the back end are more assigned to kind of clean things up. But everybody likes him, but, he's not a finished product as a defense coordinator by any stretch.
All right. What's the latest update on how many times the Niners have released and re-signed Jordan Matthews?
Oh, let's see.
And is he?
Well, I don't know the answer to this, but do you know? Is it like probably 5 or 6?
I don't know.
Yeah, I probably. So he's now on the practice squad as a tight end.
Yeah.
And so he put on some weight. He came back. The coaching staff likes him a lot because he's, as Kyle Shanahan said, he's one of these guys, whether he's playing, professional football or anything else in life, he'll be a success. And he wanted to challenge himself, and obviously he was at the end of the line as far as being a wide receiver, but he's given himself a chance to at some point get on the field as an NFL tight end. And obviously you won't see him Sunday against the Eagles, but he's somebody that's a good locker room guy and is a professional and probably helps out the wide receiver room, some of the young guys in there, as much as he does the tight ends.
First team all interview all time.
Yes.
And 225 catches his first 3 years, 10th most in NFL history.
And a lot of touchdowns too, right? I mean, he was.
Yeah, I believe he had 16. I think he had 16 is for 20, maybe 20. I think he had 8, 4, and 8. That would be 20.
I remember he was quite a red zone target. He
was a really good player.
But somebody who was reliable and could get open in short areas. So, we never saw that side of him as a wide receiver. And now potentially we could see him as a tight end. But
I expect him to be an all-pro tight end. That's,
really?
And all-pro interview.
Okay.
But there's a lot of –
that's more important for us, isn't it? The all-pro interview part.
How's Kerryon Johnson? Any chance he'll be up? I guess it's too soon.
Yeah, and he's on the practice squad. They picked up Trenton Cannon off waivers from the Ravens. So he's on the 53-man. Kerryon Johnson's on the practice squad. But I think the 3 running backs will be active. Elijah Mitchell, 6th-round pick from Louisiana, which is interesting because he was up as the number 2 guy. Raheem Mostert. Mostert was the Eagles too, right?
Had a hell of a training camp in 2015 for Chip Kelly.
And then they cut him.
They cut him among other teams.
He's a really good player. It's a
shame,
he's he's something, a really good special teams player. And then he got a chance as a running back. It was super. But
well, he had the NFC Championship game, right? 220 yards against the Packers.
yeah, one for the ages. But his issue is just can't stay healthy for long periods of time. So he's out for the season. So what was interesting was the 49ers drafted 2 running backs. They didn't expect to draft 2 running backs. They liked Trey Sermon from Ohio State a lot. They traded up in the 3rd round to get him. And then this Mitchell that they got in the 6th round with their final pick was an afterthought. It's like, well, who are we going to take in the 6th round? Well, we have Mitchell rated so much better than any other player at any other position. Let's take another running back. Well, it turns out week 1, Trey Sermon, a healthy scratch, Elijah Mitchell, the backup running back, and he runs for 104 yards. So in this game, Mitchell will be up as the starter. And then you have JaMychal Hasty, another undrafted second-year player from Baylor, and then Trey Sermon, the 3rd-round pick from Ohio State by way of Oklahoma. So those will be the 3 running backs who will be active on Sunday.
I think that's really the critical matchup in this game is the Niners running game because the Eagles gave up something like, it was like 102 rushing yards in the first quarter or the first 2 drives, and then like 20 the rest of the game. They kind of calmed down. And the Falcons don't have a elite running game. So the Niners do. And I'm sure they're going to try to run it 35 times and see if the Eagles can stop it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, their whole game is predicated on being able to run the ball. And they have 2 really good offensive tackles in the run game. Trent Williams, outstanding run game and pass game. And Mike McGlinchey, Philadelphia native, right?
Yeah.
He's an outstanding run blocker, and he's taken a lot of measures to improve his pass blocking. He had a really good game. He had a clean sheet against the Lions. No sacks allowed, no hurries, no pressures, no hits, no nothing. So that'll definitely be the thing. And what the 49ers do so well is that their run plays and their pass plays look the exact same. And so Philadelphia Eagles players, whether linebackers or strong safety or whatever, those guys who have both run and pass responsibilities are going to be turned into knots several times in this game because their run plays at the outset look exactly like the pass plays. So they're able to use the run and the threat of the run to set it up for Garoppolo to hit wide open receivers. I mean, you will see they do a really good job at scheming things up. You will see a couple times at least in this game where receivers will be, or tight ends will be running wide open. And I'm sure everybody in the stadium will be going, well, why didn't they cover that guy? And it's all because of just they call it the eye candy, right? They're just showing all kinds of different things. And the play that ends up spinning off of the formation and the play fakes and all that is different than what the defense had anticipated.
All right, Matt, which way you leaning for this game? You think it's a 49ers win?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I'd say 49ers, no doubt. Now I'm really torn on this because I think the 49ers, that week 1 took its toll on them and maybe exposed some weaknesses. And the Eagles were so much better week 1 than I thought they'd be. I think I'm still going to go 49ers, but I think it's going to be an exceptionally close, well played. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be an entertaining game, and I think it's going down to the final minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, and enjoy the rest of your time in West Virginia. We'll see you in Philly on Sunday.
All right, Dave, Rube, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Matt. At Nissan, we just made your choice for a new car easier than ever with our most exciting and fuel-efficient lineup. The choice is all yours. Now get great offers across our full line. Shop your local Nissan store today at nissanusa.com.
That was a lot of fun talking to Ray and Matt. We're getting ready for this game. Rube, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I'm with Matt. I think it's going to be a really fun, hard-fought, close game between 2 really good offenses, and we'll see which defense plays better.
You leaning one way or the other for your pick?
I'm going Eagles. I know I'm probably in the minority here, but I'm going Eagles. I was really impressed with the way they played Sunday. I think they're going to be in the game one way or the other, and my tiebreaker will be the home team. So I got the Eagles going 2-0.
That's fair. I've been bouncing back and forth all week, and I reserve the right to bounce back one more time before I have to get that on the record. You can't
change your mind once you pick on the podcast.
Yes, I can. No, the podcast is not the official pick. The official pick is on the site. I'm leaning 49ers in this game. I
practice, you were saying Eagles.
No, I said I was leaning 49ers all week.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah, I mean, I've been leaning 49ers all week. So it's a lot harder game to pick than I thought it was going to be, you know? And we'll see. I think the Eagles definitely have a real shot in this game, especially you look at that 49ers secondary, and man, if the Eagles O-line holds up, they're going to have a chance to make some big plays. But I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
Yeah, I would think so. I think it could be in the 30s.
Yeah, that would be fun. When's the last time we saw a shootout?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. There was certainly none last year. They didn't hit 30 last year. So
no, they didn't. So, looking forward to it. It's going to be a great atmosphere. Can't wait.
Yeah. Can't wait. Oh, gosh. I can't wait to drive down there and be offered a beer at 9 a.m. Not that I take it, but it's nice to get the offer.
You might take it.
All right. If you enjoy the podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click like and subscribe there. That's it. We'll talk to you after the game on Sunday night. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.